Welcome back, guys. We're here for Jaws 2.0.
Hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Hey guys, welcome back to Jaws. We are here to provide some insight, guidance, and direction when it comes to our story with mental health, addiction, codependency, trials and tribulations of life.
All the things.
Well, I hope you guys had a good Christmas.
Great holiday.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, great holidays.
A Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're almost New Year's, just a couple days away.
Yep.
Which is going to be interesting. Hey, before we get into the meat of everything today, let's talk about
just a quick little recap.
A recap about you and what you were dealing with about the internal dialogue you were having with yourself and how that's been going.
Well, let's just say through the holidays, it's been interesting because I have not been very healthy, and that has definitely weighed mentally on my soul. I've also had a realization that has taken me a long time to figure out. I have been comparing myself to like past pregnancies, looking at pictures, and the most important thing that I've realized is I've never been pregnant in the winter, and winter in Tennessee is very different than winter in California. So we don't have as much sunlight here. It can be really gloomy and cold and depressing. And when I was in California and I was pregnant in the summer. So I was super active. I was outside. I was always tan. And I just want to say that I definitely think there's like a true sense of seasonal depression, especially being pregnant on top of it. So I've kind of accepted the fact that like, okay, it's a very different season. And
I agree with you about the whole season thing, but weren't you pregnant during the winter with all the kids?
No, because I was like I was pregnant, but I was newly pregnant with the kids in December. Okay. So like I would just become pregnant.
Well, because I think the seasonal thing is a real thing, but just wanted to.
And the sunshine, like we don't have, it's cold here until after March.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see how, just the weather component of it is definitely where, this is the least amount of sun I've ever had in my life. Just this last 3 years of being here, and I could definitely see how it has an impact. So that's a interesting thing that you bring up.
Yeah, I feel like in the summer we're outside all the time. We're always out being interactive. But when it comes to getting cold and wet, it snowed a little bit here, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But I do think there's like a difference with being outside more in California than here because of the weather.
So what are you going to do about that though? Like, obviously you can't control the sun, but what are the things you're going to do?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I've realized is like I really need to cut out the bread and cheese and that kind of stuff is making me feel like way more bloated and just gross in general, and just being really conscious about.
So we're going from weather to food.
Yeah, because it's all encompassing. Like if I can't do anything about the weather and I can exercise and go to classes and stuff, but at the end of the day, like I really need to focus on what I'm eating. That's the only thing that I can be proactive on. Mm-hmm. So in the new year, I'm definitely not going to be having as much bread and cheese.
I like that. Okay, so.
And I don't even think I ate bread until I moved to Tennessee, to be honest. I don't even remember buying bread because all the kids had their lunches prepared for them, and now I buy bread to make sandwiches, but I literally was thinking back, I never ate bread or cheese in California. Like no dairy. Rarely.
Really?
Yeah, my diet didn't consist of it. Goat cheese, maybe, but other than that, I always drink dairy-free milk, and I never had bread.
Interesting.
Yeah, if I did, it was like gluten-free. No, but it's like, I don't think I was like, would buy loaves of bread. Okay, whatever. Pregnancy brain, I guess I ate bread forever. I did not.
Okay, so
Let's talk about regardless. I think I've just accepted the fact that this is just what it is. So I just need to focus more on my diet. I've been trying to use better language with myself in saying that this pregnancy is different. The season is different. It's a different time, and that's what Sandy told me to do. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm feeling better about it today.
I like that. No, that's good. No, but I think the awareness around that, especially like I said, the weather and just comparing yourself. I think those are really big things that you pointed out to be able to make a course, correction and changing diet and things like that. I think will be helpful.
Yes.
So, I love that. For me, I'm really excited entering into this new year. So basically, as funny as it is, like having to set up to switch my number, like it's been good for me to be in the place that I'm at. to do this. I'm really excited going into the new year. I will basically procure my new number, get rid of the old one, and allow myself some space and really to disconnect from work and to create those boundaries to get to the goals that I want to achieve, which is to have more time with my family, more time with my kids, more time with God, and just to not feel like it's just constantly in this rat race and this merry-go-round of life. So
I get that.
that will all be happening by the next time we talk.
So we're gonna have to check back in about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a constant thing though. But it's crazy. I've had a lot of guys reach out and ask about the boundary setting and stuff. So I think a lot of people are in that place where they're yearning for some disconnect when it comes to just work-life balance, and they're wanting to have more time. I think we are just in a place where the world that we live in is very consuming. So it'll be interesting to see how this transforms and changes for me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it.
I love that. And then a little quick thing, because last week we talked about Jason hitting 5 years. He was just about to hit his 5 years. He made it to 5. Woo!
Yeah, 5 years. I can't believe it.
I know. And we celebrated. I flew in his best friend. We had a really nice dinner for him, celebrated with really close friends and family. So it was really, really special.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because I tell Jason, like, I don't know why you decided to choose to have your sobriety birthday, your birthday, and Christmas all within like 3 weeks of each other.
Do that on
Lots
purpose.
of celebrating already.
Yeah.
So I finally feel like there's a little bit of peace and calm because it's just been like nonstop. I feel like I've had so much pressure to get everything together before the holidays and everything, and now family's in town, and it's really nice. I feel like yesterday was the first day I finally felt like at peace. Just not the present situation, like all that stuff just stresses me out, and the fact that it's over, I'm like, oh, we can like relax.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, I want to know how, God has played a huge part in our life as we've entered into literally and figuratively this new season. But I think obviously you had a very up and down relationship with God just over the years, just with things that have happened in your life. Do you want to just give a high level overview of kind of your initial relationship to where things went to where they are now?
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about today, in case you guys didn't know. Our subject today is going to be talking about the Lord and how our relationship has transformed through him, with him over the last couple of years, and like how we kind of found our relationship with God. So I'm going to start. I grew up in a Catholic home. I remember going to church at a really young age. I had my first Holy Communion. I never got confirmation, which is like when you're older. But I went to Sunday school, and I'm an Italian Catholic. So we have that like Catholic guilt situation too, as like you get older, the tradition. If you're Catholic and you're Italian, you totally understand what I'm talking about. But Catholicism for me was like more of a very traditional situation, and I think for me also it's more of like my heritage, being Italian and like going into a church and having like morals and values were very stemmed at a young age. Like we were not allowed to wear tank tops to church. We had to wear a dress every single Sunday. If you wore jeans, it was like so disrespectful to walk into church having jeans. And so I had this really interesting perspective about like Christianity. Even though Catholics are technically Christians, I felt like a Christian church. I had friends that had gone to Awanas and been in Christian church, and I just felt like it was so strange to me that people would go to church and wear jeans. Like I also felt like it was kind of disrespectful. Like people were just kind of lazy when they went to church because they didn't dress up for God. And I think it kind of created like this weird stigma for me about Christians. Like, you have to be in a church to be able to pray. Like you can't be in like some weird school auditorium having church. Like I just felt like it was almost like this weird thing where people were like making up spaces to have church, and that was strange to me. Like I felt like it needed to be in like an actual physical church that looked like a Catholic church or like a Presbyterian church. So fast forward, I obviously went to church my whole life, and then I met you. And I remember your dad would like question me about Catholicism, and I like couldn't really answer any questions because I didn't really know anything about the Bible. I'd gone to church my whole entire life, but if you asked me to phrase like something from the Bible, I would give you like the Hail Mary or the Our Father, or I would say like little lines that Jason would know. But I think when it came to actual biblical history, I really had no idea. And obviously during Christmas, we knew like the birth of Jesus and like the resurrection of the Lord during Easter. But other than that, I was stumped. And so I remember kind of being questioned, and your family's very Christian. So, and your dad's been in the church for a really long time.
You met me and was the blue jean wearing, church going at the auditorium.
Yeah, you had a lot of issues. I was like, something's not working, okay? This church is not a good church. No, but really, I think it opened up a lot of eyes for me, because I remember the first time I went to Mariners Church, and I kind of finally understood for the first time the message had become so clear, because it was more in layman's terms of, like taking the New Testament and putting it into something that was more relative to everyday life. And it just was really cool. And I didn't realize that in that moment, in this big church, and everyone's raising their hands, which was like really strange for me. I'm like, this is weird. Like, people have their hands up in the air. Like, we don't really do that when we pray. Like, we put our hands together, we put our heads down. Like, it was almost like a weird situation that I had never been to. And it grew on me for a while, but I will say, after my dad died, my relationship got very strained. And I think I was in this really weird situation because my mom was always Catholic, and then I married somebody that was Christian, and it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but for me, it was a really, really big deal, because I almost wanted to raise our kids Catholic. Like, I would always picture going to a Catholic church, and then with Jason being Christian, I just felt like almost like I was betraying my family being Christian, because it was, my whole life was like going to Catholic church, even though it didn't have as much meaning for me as the traditional aspect of it. The meaning was just tradition, and I didn't want to get rid of like that tradition in my family, and the ritualism of it, and the morals, and the dressing up for it, like, made me feel like it was something special. And so, yeah, I think when my dad passed away, my relationship with God really got strained. And I think after you had relapsed and everything that had gone on, it even grew more strained. And I think I felt like I was in this weird situation, because I had been Catholic, and then I was trying to go to Christian church, and then my world was falling apart. And I kind of felt like, is there even a God? Like, I really questioned for a long time, like, if I'm doing all the right things that I'm supposed to be doing, like, why is God tormenting me? Like, I felt like I was so undeserving of my life at that time. Like, I was a good person. I grew up really kind. I had a really empathetic heart and soul, and very giving. And I was so mad with God that I lost my relationship with God for a really long time. And I would say it wasn't even really till we moved to Tennessee that my relationship got better. Because I think even going to Mariners, like, it felt so big. I didn't feel like I connected with a lot of people. It didn't feel like a small church. I knew people that were going to church that were so non-Christian, which is why I had this huge stigma against Christians in general, because I would see people going to church and they were just not good people. And I'm thinking, you can't just like go to church and then all of a sudden be Christian. You have to actually like live. It's like an action program, like we talk about in AA and Al-Anon. You can't say you're a Christian and then walk around doing the things that you do and not living a Christian life, because you're not living like the full biblical term of like what it's like to be a Christian. You're judging, you're stealing money, you're doing all these kinds of crazy things, you're cheating on your wife, you know what I mean? So it was just a really interesting situation to be surrounded by all these people that are like, we're Christians, we love the Lord. And you're like a slimy, terrible human. And I know that. And God has to forgive. So over time, I've realized like, God's forgiving and everything else, and that's not really what it's all about. But I think I had to find my own terms with what that looked like and heal in my own recovery for God. And then when I came to Franklin, I found a church. We go to Church of the City, and I love church. It's the first time I've ever looked forward to Sundays in my life, because I literally feel like my spiritual cup is being filled. And I remember walking into that church, and kind of like I did when I would walk into Catholic church at times, like there's like a hymn of the Holy Spirit like going through your body where you feel emotional. And I feel like when I would go to church and you'd hear worship, I just felt like I would cry every time, because I really felt the Holy Spirit there, and it felt like a totally different experience than I'd ever experienced. And I just felt so much love, and I felt, even though it was a big church, I felt this really small community there. And then come full circle, I got baptized in February. I'd never been baptized in a Christian church, and I felt like I was going to be 35. And before my 35th birthday, the most important thing to me was I wanted to get baptized. And I really felt like my relationship with God has come so full circle, and now I love the Lord so much, and I want to raise my children to love the Lord, and I want to be a Christian. I have so many faults. I mean, you guys have seen my Instagram videos. I can curse like a sailor, and that is something that is a defect of character, because it's not good to have that tongue and be a Christian. Like, it's not. And I've learned that a lot in church, and it's stuff that I'm working on. But we're imperfect humans, and I've realized too over time, because of my relationship with God, I thought all these things happened to me because God was cursing me, but it's not God that's bringing cancers and death upon people. This world is broken. And we as humans have created a broken world. Yeah. And so having that realization and understanding, like, this is not God that's like giving me these, I feel like God wasn't doing this to me. It's like, this is humanity. We have choices in life, and sometimes our choices can lead us down these wrong paths, but then God opens doors for us that we didn't even realize. And if I didn't have all of these situations that have happened in my life, I don't think I would be as strong as I am today, or as knowledgeable, or as, as good of a mom or a wife as I am.
Yeah, no, it's been really incredible to see your journey. And it's very inspirational, or it's very inspirational and admirable to see where you're at and just how dedicated you are. I mean, I even envy the fact, just what you do on a daily basis, your morning devotion, and you getting into the Word in the morning and taking notes, and just your relationship with God has grown a lot, and it's been really, really inspiring. And so I'm really proud of you, and it's been cool to watch this journey for you as you've developed and gotten closer to God, because I've seen the transformation happen for you, and I've seen how your outlook on life is different, and how you really entrust in Him and allow Him to provide you guidance and direction. And again, as we all have our our moments, but overall the change that you've made has been incredible. So
Thank you.
It's you should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you.
So I've enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So on the flip side, I was the kid that went to church in the auditorium with the blue jeans on, and Laguna Beach High School. Actually went to Calvary Laguna growing up, and my dad was a deacon in the church, and I was always, ever since I could remember, grew up going to church, non-denominational, just really more biblical teachings. My dad was, my mom and dad are devout believers, and it was always just a part of our life, which I'm really, really grateful for. To the point where my dad we did a trip out to Israel with me, my mom, and my dad, and some friends and some of our church, and was baptized in the Jordan River, and just always had the message of God around me, and I never had a hard time believing in Him or connecting with Him. It was something that I always just believed, you know what I mean? But the thing that I could say over all the years from when I was young into my adolescence to later teens, early 20s and stuff like that is, even though I never had a problem believing or connecting with Him, I never was walking the path with Him. I always knew that He was there along the side with me, but He had a greater purpose for me, down the road. And looking back, it's like, I don't know what it was. I believed, but I wasn't walking. And it was very apparent. You look back at my history, and it was almost like I was walking with the other side, depths of addiction, just going through a lot of trials and tribulations. When in reality, I've learned now is like when you're at the deepest and the darkest moments is the greatest opportunity to connect with God. But I never reached out. But there was a lot of people around me when I was going through a lot of stuff. Constantly. They would say like, "Hey, we're praying for you. We're keeping you up, lifting you up in prayer, and just know that." And so I just remember having that presence around me with God, and it was very impactful and very empowering. But again, I had to go down the road that I had to go down. And I'd say for me, if it wasn't for my mom or my dad, because they set such a good example, like to constantly be able to go back to the relationship with the Lord. And so like when I ended up getting sober the first time, back in July 23rd, 2010, God started to become back a part of my life, started going back to church, started connecting. That's when we started going to Mariners and different things. And I started to develop a relationship and develop a rapport. And I think it was just more of the consistency of going. Again, I wasn't like heavily in the Bible, but I was getting slowly, like baby steps, getting more and more connected and seeing that. And then obviously all the trials that you'd gone through with, with your dad passing away, and then me relapsing, like all these different things that were happening. Like, there was a disconnect that happened again for me. It was almost kind of like it got unplugged for a little while just during that time. And then, again, is after I ended up getting sober again, we, started going back to church. I feel like we ended up getting connected and started to deepen that relationship again. But for me as well, it's like I always just had this very loose relationship with God ever since I was young. And then it was until we moved here, I had like a really crazy experience. I don't know if you remember with that guy,
I
Coach.
can see. Oh my gosh, you got to tell the story.
Well, we're not gonna have time for the story. I'll share it at a different time. But there was a gentleman I was connecting with, and he basically, long story short, called me out on the relationship that I had with God and just kind of like the way I was living and just different things. And it really put things into perspective. There were so many little moments that had happened that it literally, I remember from connecting with him to driving home to going into my therapy session, I was just in tears about just just how God spoke to me in that moment. It was like just this big moment of clarity for me where I was just like, oh my gosh, like I finally have clarity and an understanding of what this looks like. And that's where my journey really started to shift, was after I had that meeting with that guy, and it really hit home. And it really changed the way that I looked at that. And from that moment, I started to get more and more connected. That's when I started going to Bible study. I started to get into the Word. I wanted to learn more about like God. And again, similar to you, is like I knew Scripture and I knew different things, but again, there's always room for depth and growth within my relationship with the Lord. And that's something that I'm still in the process of and still yearning for, is to get more and more connected with Him. But it was about 2.5, 3 years ago that it went from believing in God, which I did my whole life, to really starting to get involved in the Word and like really starting to try to walk with Him. And so it's been a really interesting journey, you know what I mean? And it's because it's like my whole life I've always believed, I had no issue with Him. But now I'm in a place where I'm getting a lot closer, but I had this just aha moment that really transformed the way that I was looking at this relationship with Him.
It's so powerful. Like it really is. There's such a difference between like understanding God and believing in God and then walking with God. Like they say, like the Bible is like a living thing.
It's a living word, yeah.
And you don't realize it until you actually like dive into it. I'd never read a Bible in my whole entire life. I'd received them for communion and everything else. Never opened a Bible until I started going to church in the city, to our church. And it really transforms your life. It's like a real thing. And it's so simple. It's been around for over thousands and thousands of years. And it's like we have this biblical text that the whole entire world could utilize.
Yeah.
And I think that was amazing. And also just connection with people. Like I think we've stepped away from having human connection and like how important these relationships are that aren't just about like getting together and having the kids together. It's like, no, like diving in deep with one another and building community and fellowship is what God wants us to do, you know? And like, if we're doing the things that He's calling us to do, life is so much easier, you know? So I just love that. And I hope that you guys can take away some stuff from this today too. If you're not walking with the Lord, or if you're Catholic or Christian or whatever religion that you are. And I mean, we've been through a lot and seen a lot of shift, but I will say like my relationship with God has been the best when I'm with Him and walking with Him, and my life has been so much better when I'm with Him, walking with Him, than my way. His way is so much better than my way. Yeah, no, it's something that we, and how we do that, I think this like is a takeaway, is like, is obviously getting in the Word, prayer, fellowship, connecting with others, being of service. There's so many different ways that you can get connected, but ultimately is instilling some of those practices has obviously been transformative for us. And so, as we
continue to share with you guys. Obviously, you'll hear more and more around this journey. But I mean, God plays a very instrumental role in our life, and it's something that is very near and dear to us, and something that we've implemented with our kids. And so, yeah, we'll keep going with that. We hope you guys have a wonderful day today, and we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good. See you guys next week. Bye.
We're